All right.
He was a U.S. citizen. They deported him to Mexico.
I'm not sure what I was thinking the other day. Well, I do know. Nothing. That's what I was thinking. Obviously, there was nothing in my brain at all when I thought we had enough time to have another test. We don't have enough time to have the test and have the review for the test. So I think, next week I think what we'll do is just follow up any problems, any questions we have on what we're going to do today, and then we'll proceed to review for the final. Okay? I understand that there is the final exam schedule has reappeared on the website. So we'll go look at that here in a minute. All right, let's.
We still on chapter 14?
If you want to be.
I wonder where I need to open my book to.
Well, we looked at 14 last time. That's installment buying, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, somebody forgot, in spite of, I guarantee you, his best intentions, to put any homework out there. And I had it on my mind at least once. So let's do this. Let's go on and look at 15, and then I'll put 14 and 15 homework out there. You can look at it over, when you're sitting there 3 o'clock tomorrow or Thursday afternoon comatose from your turkey.
Turkey or ham.
Yeah, I'm a ham person myself. All right, today's the 20th of November, and we're going to go on and look at chapter 15, which is, the name of this is the cost of home ownership. So we're going to talk about monthly payments and some other issues. Now the good news is there's a lot of this chapter works just like chapter 14. The only difference is you're dealing with larger sums of money for longer periods and hopefully at a lesser interest rate. And we talked about why this would be the last time. If you look on page 375, it talks about computing the monthly payment for principal and interest. Step 1, divide the amount of the mortgage by $1,000. Now, remember chapter 14, I did point out that you have to figure out how much you're financing. So if you're going to buy a $100,000 house and you have $25,000 for a down payment, you'd subtract that. So you're going to divide $75,000 by the $1,000 here. So you subtract your down payment. Step two, look up the rate and terms, or term in the amortization table. Did I tell you that amortize or amort is, well, mort, M-O-R-T, is French for death. So keep that in mind when you look at these amortization tables. I guess you're trying to kill the loan, I guess. At the intersection of the table, at the intersection of these two things, the rate and term, is the table factor, and then you multiply step 1 by step 2. And I think you'll find this is pretty much what you did in chapter 14. Let's work a problem or two. Let's see. That's good. A minute. Well, let's do that. Look on page 384. They actually have a problem here that mentions Oprah. And I don't know if this is true or not.
I heard she's the richest woman in the world.
Wouldn't doubt it. Would not doubt it. All right. This is problem 15-10, Oprah has closed on a 42-acre estate near Santa Barbara for, what is that, $50 million? I think so. If Oprah puts 20% down and finances at 7% for 30 years, what would her monthly payment be? Well, obviously she's going to pay cash for this, but we'll play along with them here. And act like we know what's going on. So 50 million, 7% in 30 years, wasn't it? Is that all the information we're given?
Yes.
Well, we're told 20% down. Okay. So, first, how much I want is here. How much is she financing? Now, we could find 20% of 50 million and then subtract that from 50 million. Or remember what we were doing back at the beginning of the class? We were looking at problems and we were finding the complement. So I'm going to use that fact here. I'm going to multiply. Here's what I'm going to do. To find the amount financed, I'm going to take the $50,000 and I'm going to multiply it by 0.80. No, it's going to be more than that.
Oh, that's what you said.
Oh, 50. I said 50,000?
Yeah.
And you're listening?
I
All right,
listened
she wins the prize. She's the only one who heard that. Calculator. By the way, happy Turkey Day to all of you.
Happy Honest Turkey. It's a happy honest turkey.
Well, this is the last time I'll see you for Turkey Day. All right, make sure you get all the zeros in there. Times 0.8. And count zeros here. 3, 6, 40 million. Which I'm sure is chump change. The Oprah.
So then what do you do, the 40 million times divided by 1,000?
Wait a minute. Is that what it said?
No, you gotta find the.
So this is the amount we're going to finance. Now go back and look. It says, I think you're right. We do divide by 1,000. Step 1. So this is the official step 1. See, I would actually put this other step in front of that. So this is on page 375. The amount, divide the amount of the mortgage by 1,000. Since we've got it in our calculator, if we do this, answer divided by 1,000. So looks like, so step 1, let me write this down. We're looking for the amount financed divided by $1,000, and that's going to be 40,000, I believe. And I'm going to copy this over so you see what we did there. Make sure you count all your zeros. I think we're good. All right, so that's step 1. Step 2 says what? Look up the rate and term in the table. So this is, let me back up here, from table, what number is this? 15-1? So let's see. We're doing, back up. We're doing 7% for, what is it, 30 years?
Yes.
For 30 years? I messed that up. So, on page 376, the leftmost column is the term in years. Now, this is one of the differences between this chapter and the previous chapter. Previous chapter, we were looking for a number of months, typically out to 6 or 7 years. With mortgages, they're much longer term. So, your left-hand column there is term in years. So 30, and then we go across to 7% and get our table factor, and what is that? 6.66. Okay. And now, referring back to step 3, this is on page 375. So to get the payment is going to be step 1, which is the 40,000 times what you find in step 2, which is 6.66. Calculator. Now the good news is, at least in my calculator, I have the 40,000 already there. So if I do multiplication, hit the multiply sign, times 6.6. That's an awful lot. Well, this is per year. 2,660,000. Oops. I'm off one. Sorry, this isn't per year, this is per month. Hang on. Hang on. It's hard to read all those decimal places. Yeah, 400, and that is per month. Okay? Well, you got a $50 million house.
I'll forbid.
Well, I'm not sure what you would do with a $50 million house, but
I'll do a lot of work.
yeah, you'd have to have people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you probably need another house for the people to live in, wouldn't it? Yeah, you need a house for your people. So that was, yeah, this was pretty much an extreme example. Because most of us aren't going to,
Make that one.
yeah. But there's all the steps. Let's see if we can find a more reasonable problem. Let's see. Boy, all these numbers are big, aren't they?
511 stuff doesn't look that. But you don't want to do the odd ones, right?
But typically I don't. We could do 512, which is based on 511. It's just got a different interest rate. Let's do that. Let's look at 1512. It says if in problem 1511 the interest rate is 7.5%, what's the difference in the interest cost? Well, we'd have to do 1511 to get 1512, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
That's still not a bad problem to work.
You couldn't just replace the 5.5 with 7.5? Is that all?
Well, but I think it's a good problem. 1511 and 1512 together is a pretty good combination to work. Because it's going to show you something. So let's work that, and just because it's interesting. Well, by that, what I mean is, let's work 1511 and 1512. So 1511 Joe bought a home in Arlington, Texas for $140,000. I don't know what the median home costs in America right now. This one's kind of things you hear periodically if you watch the nightly business report and things like that. They'll occasionally tell you what. I'm sure we can look it up. So he's going to buy a house for $140,000. He puts 20% down and obtain a mortgage for 30 years at 5.5%. What is Joe's monthly payment? What's the total interest cost on the loan? So these are all interesting things to know. So let's do this.
The average price for a home in the U.S. is $200,000.
Really? Well, and that's counting. There's a lot of places where real estate is really expensive, and then there's a lot of places where it's not. Okay. I wonder if they got an average in there somewhere for Kentucky. I'm sure somebody's got it. But let's work this problem. Now keep in mind here, this is what the cost of the house is. He's putting 20% down, and that's fairly typical. Those of you who are a little older might remember, it's been almost 10 years ago, we had a mortgage crisis. And the problem was there was a lot of banks and other lending institutions that were willing to loan you 100% of the cost of a house. Now, then the market went down. Actually, it kind of crashed. So, $100,000, what was a $100,000 house last week, this week might be a $70,000 house. So, and you think, well, it's the same house. Welcome to the world of whatever, economics, high finance or whatever. Things can change that quickly. So, if somebody had loaned you 100,000 or 100% on this house, they would automatically be down 30% of that, just because the market went down. So now it's pretty typical to have 20% down. That protects the lenders in case the market goes down up to 20%. And a lot of people will tell you it's hard to come up with 20%, and it is. So if the banks made this any more, like 30%, they would be cutting into the number of people that could actually come up with that much money. Okay? So I'm sure the 20% is kind of a compromise. And the main thing it does here, it protects the lending institution from devaluing the value of whatever you're buying, in this case a home. By the way, we've gotten to the point right now where young people coming out of college owe so much student debt that they can't afford to buy homes. And for years, one of the main engines of the American economy was people buying homes. So this is a problem. and it stems from college debt. So now you have a lot of people that are, I don't know how happy they are, but they're living in apartments and renting because, and a lot of times it's almost as expensive. But you know, you got to live somewhere, I guess. So anyway, 20% down, and oops, not 30%, it's 30 years.
30 years at 5%.
I told you mortgage is based on the French word mort, didn't I? Death. 40 years at, and what was the percentage?
5%.
5.5. Okay. And what else are we told here? We want the monthly payment, total interest cost, etc. Okay. So, first thing we need to do is figure out how much we're actually financing. So the amount to be financed is your $140,000 times what?
1,000.
Times 0.8. Oh. That's a compliment.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what we need this number first.
For the down payment. I forgot.
Yeah, we're putting 20% down. And we had to really rake and scrape and hit up the in-laws to get that 20%, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Don't laugh. I hope you have in-laws with money. So we're going to finance $112,000. Okay. Now, we're told back on, what's 374, wasn't it? Something like that, or no?
375.
Well, it's close. To, what do we do next?
We divide the amount financed by 1,000.
So this is on page 375. So this is the official step one, although I don't know why they didn't put in the calculate the amount to be financed as step one. So step one is divide the 112 by 1,000, and you should get 112, don't you?
Yep.
Okay. So that's step one. Step two, look up the rate and the term in the amortization table, which is 15.1 from so we've got 30 years.
Mm-hmm. 5.5%.
So your table factor is 5.5. What do you got?
5.68.
Okay. And then step three, you multiply step one by step two, don't you? So this gives you your monthly payment is going to be 112 times 5.68. Calculator. I'm just going to go and divide that by 1,000. And then times 5.68. Okay. Well, if you're not careful, you know that fancy car you bought?
Yeah.
That's about what the car payment was too.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
Remember that? We bought that car last class.
The thing ain't going off based on my income.
Now, that's the monthly payment, and it wants to know what's the total interest cost of the loan. Well, first we can find the total paid on the loan. Now, to do this per month times 30 years times 12 months in a year. Okay. And notice in this case, the years cancel out. Y'all know how I like it when things cancel out. So let's see. I'm just going to press multiply here and get that previous answer times 30.
Times 12.
30 years and then 12 months. Yeah, you could just multiply it by 360 if you see that. I'm just doing it step by step so you'll see. So that's
Almost $100,000 more.
hang on. What'd you say?
Really hurts my wallet.
Yeah, I do.
So that's 229,000.
$10,000
Now that's the
short.
total paid on the loan. Now to get the hang on, we'll talk about this. The amount of interest is going to be the total you paid minus how much you financed. That was 112, wasn't it? Is that right? I think so.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So now if we just do this minus 1112000, $117,017.60.
Yeah, no.
Seems like you might as well just-
But
So I could have just bought me a second house with,
well,
or three if I was going cheap.
yeah, I think you discovered the importance of having money and not having to borrow it. But, let's just wait just a minute before we panic too much on this. I want to point out some things. Okay? You know, this seems like a losing proposition, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, let me explain this to you. Let's see. In the first place, currently, the tax law is you would deduct the amount of interest you pay from your gross income every year. So if we're paying total interest here is going to be what, $120,000 roughly for 30 years. That's about $4,000 a year. Okay. Now, if you consider you're paying 25% tax every year, you'd save about $1,000 just in tax, income tax. Okay? So that helps some. Over the life of the loan, that's $30,000. That's subtracted from the 120, so that it's making it look better already.
Yeah.
Now the other assumption is, hang on. The other assumption is that the value of that house will go up every year that you own it.
You think it would go down?
No, why? No.
As long as you don't destroy it,
Yeah,
right?
assuming you're keeping it up, which costs money as well. But you're living there, so you want it to look nice.
Yeah, but I mean, like, just thinking like that it would go like the older it gets, like the more the price drops.
Houses are kind of like wine.
Well, you need to be careful what you buy. But with this house, say this house was just built. So over the next 30 years, it's going to go from a brand new house to 30 years old. It should be in pretty good shape. Now, also keep in mind that you're probably going to have to replace the roof and the water heater and the furnace. That's just part of it.
But a house is worth almost $250,000.
Um,
Well, over $250,000.
well, again, you didn't let me finish.
I'm still listening.
Well, but we're assuming, and this is pretty much holding true, and we might be able to Google this and find out a more specific number, but with a few exceptions, the price of real estate has been rising a certain percent a year for the past so many years. Now, we had a little hiccup about 10 years ago, okay? So you got to be careful about those. But the assumption is if it's a $100,000 house now, in 30 years, maybe it's a $180,000 house. And the fact that you paid $90,000 worth of interest, that's not a bad deal. Because you got to live there,
Yeah.
okay? And any improvements you make, of course, you got to do your upkeep. But,
Okay.
and actually, home ownership is traditionally one of the big dreams of being an American. Own your own home. Because typically, over time, the value, the equity, is what it's called, how much you really have in it. If you sold it, how much would you clear? That's the equity. Your equity goes up over time because the value of the thing goes up, and you're making payments on it, etc. So, actually, home ownership is one of the kind of the backbones of the U.S. economy. Now, I think I pointed this out before. One of the problems we have now is so many people are leaving college with so much debt they can't afford to buy a house. So, that's a problem. And a lot of people right out of college are deciding we'll just live in the city and use mass transit. They don't have a house payment. They don't have a car payment. They're just trying to pay off their student loans. So anyway, by the way, you'll see in this chapter, we may not get to it today, but you also have to buy insurance and keep the house up. So there are other costs. But I think most economists will tell you this is one of the better things you can do with your money, assuming the value keeps going up every year. Okay? So, it's American dream, own your own home. While we're here, what's that next problem actually say? Problem 1512. And problem 15 is if the interest rate is 7.5%, what's the difference? Well, let's do that real quick, and then I'll go back and show you something else. Or do we want to do that right now? Let's do another part of this problem, and then we'll do the next problem. And here's the question I want to ask. How about 20 years? Instead of taking this loan out for 30 years, can we do 20?
Yeah.
Well, let's see what the implications are. Step one is still going to be 112, isn't it? We're still borrowing the same amount. So step one is still 112. Let's leave that. So, and then step two from table 15.1. Now with 20 years, still same percent interest. Let's go back to our table. So now 20 years at 5.5, what do you get? What'd you get? Hello?
88.
That's what I got, 6.88. So 3. I don't know why I keep doing that. So now the monthly payment is going to be 112 times 20 years times 12 months in a year. And of course those two things cancel out. So now our payment is, calculator, clear, 112 times 20. Oops. I got to put the, it's not 112, it's the, hang on, I put the wrong thing in here. It's, this is the 6.88. Okay. So let me fix that. 6.88 times 20 times 12 months in a year.
$1,651.26.
How much you got?
165 or 1,651.26.
Okay, we're paying a lot more per month, but let's look at the total cost. Let me fix that. So, did we do that right?
I thought we skipped the monthly payment. But we did.
Yeah, I did two things at once. No wonder that didn't work out. I don't know what I'm thinking here. I started down this path and then went somewhere else. Scratch this and let me fix this. Duh. I changed the wrong number. The monthly payment, I was figuring out what it was going to cost for everything. The monthly payment is actually 112 times the 6.88, and that gives us what? Got ahead of myself. 112 times 6.88. There we go. That's more like it. $770.56. So compare this. How much difference is there in the monthly payment between a 30-year loan and a 20-year loan? That's 30. That's 20. What, $130 a month?
$134.
Now let's do what I started out to do here before I got confused. So now we can do the total paid on the loan. Now we're going to have $770.56 times, let me roll this up a little bit, 20 years times 12 months per year. Those two things cancel. So the total paid on the loan under these conditions is,
$4,934.40.
so times 20 times 12 So 184, 393, 934, 40. Dang, can't talk. So what do you see here? What do you see?
And money even on what we're making there, right?
It's better if you can take it down to 20.
Absolutely. D'Angelo's hit the nail on the head. Now, 30 years we're paying basically 640, and 20 years that jumps up to about 770. It's about $130. But look how much you save. From about 230 to about 180, that's up almost $50,000. Now the point is, when you're borrowing money, you want to try to get the shortest term you think you can pull off. Okay? You see what we're doing here? Now, you may have to kind of, don't eat out as much or whatever to make up this $30 roughly. But by hook or crook, you need to try to come up with the 20-year loan versus the 30-year loan. And I did tell you the other day, and I think most loans are actually like this. Anytime you can pay extra makes a big difference. Like, for example, if we went with the 20-year option here and our payment's $770 a month, if we could pay $800, it's going to make a big difference. We'll save even more over a 30-year loan. So any extra little, that you can pay every month really helps you. Yeah.
The amount of interest that you save, you doing 20 years versus 30 years, you save $44,083.20 just on interest.
Yeah.
Damn.
I love it when the light bulb comes on. So that's the whole trick. If you take a longer term on a loan, your payments are lower, but ultimately long term, you pay a lot more money in interest. So you want to make your payment.
Really glad I seen this because I've actually been looking into possibly buying.
Yeah.
I have there. I see.
Yeah, and it also helps. The bigger your down payments you can swing. I don't know if there's any programs out there now for first-time home buyers, and there's other things that can sometimes give you a break and help you on things. But all this stuff mounts up. By doing without a little bit here every month, we saved ourselves $45,000 roughly. Hey, that's real money.
That's another house. Another small one-bedroom house.
The problem is you can't buy one-bedroom houses because the bank won't loan you money on one bedroom. I don't think.
Oh,
I think it'll be two. I think most lending institutions want 2 bedrooms at least. I think. Of course, now, see, 1-bedroom things are probably apartments. I don't know if there's one-bedroom townhouses. I'm not sure. Most lenders, I think, want 2 bedrooms. Okay. Well, that was informative, wasn't it? Let's see. We talked about doing the next problem. I could probably just assign it for homework. Let's look at it and make sure that we know what we're doing. Because I do think the next problem is interesting. Problem 1512. If in the problem 1511 the interest rate rises to 7.5%, what's the difference in the interest cost? So I'll assign that for homework. And that's another thing you'll discover is a point or two of interest costs you a lot of money. And at some point in the future, you might have to make the comparison of, is it better to do 20 years at 5.5% or 15 years at 6%, or, you know, you'll be needing to do comparisons to see which is the best deal. Anyway, so I'll assign that for homework. But there's another thing in here I want to show you. And there's actually some things here that I want you to look at, but we're not going to work them out. Look at 379, or look on somebody's paper. And I mentioned this to you the other day. On 378, Learning Unit 15.2, and I'm not going to assign any problems on this, I just want you to see how it works. An amortization schedule says breaking down the monthly payment. And I pointed out the other day is when you start making payments on a house or even a car, anything that you're paying down over time, when you start out, you're paying, most of your payment goes to interest and a little bit to principal. And over time, your payment stays the same, but more of your payment goes to principal and less to interest because you're paying off some of the principal, so therefore there's less interest on it. So you can see this in table 15.3. They show you how this works. And this is based on, let's see, a monthly payment of $1,288. Payment number one, your interest is, let's see, I think every one of these you pay $1,288. So the first payment, $1,200 of that is actually interest. And only $88 goes to principal. So that gives you a new principal over in that last column. And as time goes by, with every payment amount's the same, $1,288. But each time, less of it goes to interest, more to reducing the principal, and the actual balance of the principal drops over time. So we're not going to work any problems out like this because ultimately, do we really care? We just want to know what our monthly payment is. But spend a moment or two reading that so you'll see how this works. So,
Bless you.
That's over there.
you okay?
Bless you.
Sorry.
Is your hand in the air for a reason, or?
Okay.
Okay.
There's a boogeyman over there.
Where?
Somewhere over there. All three of us, and possibly four, randomly heard what sounded like a blind hit. And then it sounded like came from here, but turns out it was just her sneezing and scared me to death. So, but that wasn't a sneeze, that was a boogeyman.
Well, I guess I could tell you about Gene Hauser.
Oh my god.
Don't tell me there's a ghost here.
I just now thought of that. I'll have to bring this up to some of my colleagues. No, the guy that used to teach in this room, Jean-Pierre Hauser, he was here for several years, and he left here and went to Shawnee State and taught up there. And unfortunately, a couple of years ago, there was some issue with his heart, and the doctors were trying to do something to his heart, and he died on the operating table. So he's gone. Jean-Pierre. So it could be Gene Hauser's ghost. I'll have to bring that up.
That was kind of
That'll be an interesting conversation.
It sounded like somebody like hit the blind or something like that.
Could be Jean-Pierre.
But I mean, like
Yeah.
all three of us heard it. Well, the one over there was her sneezes. I mean, it's okay. I work at the gym.
I will bring this up.
I will say I actually thought I heard something myself, and then suddenly I had to sneeze really badly,
See?
like out of nowhere.
What are you going
Gene Hauser.
No.
Gene Hauser.
No ghosties.
Oh, by the way, y'all have a good Turkey Day.
on?
And then next week we'll review everything for the final. Okay? What? She is still obsessing about that zero. You'll be okay. Okay.